When we think about research, before I go through this, I'm just going to go back to this main slide. If you look in your programs, in the second, just after the program, there's a page that asks you, with a picture of President Obama on it. Hopefully you should be able to find it. And this is a little exercise for just getting you to think about what is research. Okay? So there should be post-its on each of your tables. And the question I want you to think about is, if we at Spirit wanted to do a study and we wanted to research who are the main, or what person has made most impact on your lives. Okay? I want you to have a think about that and to think about why. Okay? Is there any one person that has made a big impact on your life? Okay? So on the post-its, I want you to write what type of person that is. So for example, it could be a teacher, it could be a pop star, it could be a politician, although I'm not sure if there'll be many saying politician. And then the reason why. So have a think about that for a minute. That served really two purposes. It was just an opportunity to get you talking amongst yourselves in your groups, but it also got you to think about these two things, research and impact. Okay, so it was an example of a very small scale research study. So at some stage later today, it would be great if you could all put your post-its up on the window, some stage over here, so people can go and have a look later in the day and have a look at other people that have inspired or impacted people's lives. So research involves firstly finding out. We were trying to find out who is the person who's most impacted your life and understanding something. We also try to pose a question to you, get you to think about a question. So the question we asked, was about a person who's impacted your lives. The question could also be, why are day centres being shut down? Okay, so that's something that we'll be looking at in the next presentation, and looking at some of the ways in which adults with learning disabilities are trying to get together through peer advocacy groups. But it's also about these kind of other words like describing. Okay, so trying to present a picture of how things are by explaining. But it's also about thinking about, well, how can we predict what might happen? Or how could we try and improve things? Okay, by trying to find solutions. So going back to the question about day centres, if we were to look at that, we could try and identify and look at how day centres are different in England and Wales, because budgets are different. Okay, so the way that local councils give money for services. Another important part of research is to think about being very systematic. Okay, and that means trying to think about the best way that you can ask the questions, thinking about the right questions to ask, the right people to ask, recording and making sense of what people say. And then it's about trying to reach a conclusion, or trying to find out what are the main messages from the research. So how can we do this process of research inclusively? Okay. And learning disability research has really been at the forefront of thinking about doing research inclusively. So then the nothing about us without us logo of the disability movement have really helped people working in the disability field, including researchers, to think about including people and working with people, not on them. So this is a really important point, that researchers don't use people as objects of research for other people to study. It's important then to capture the views and the experiences of the people being studied. Often research doesn't do that. Okay, so often researchers don't think about asking people with learning disabilities, for example, what their views and opinions are. So it's about issues that really matter, and the aim is to try and improve people's lives. And through the process, through doing the research, it's about treating people with respect. So people taking part, they might be interviewed, for example, that they feel respected by the researchers. So I've got up here a whole series of different labels. Okay, so I'm not going to go through them all in any detail, but it's just to show that there are different ways to talk about inclusive research. So participatory research or community research. Sometimes it's about user-led research. So involving people with learning disabilities from the very start, so they're thinking about or helping researchers think about the right questions to ask. But while there's lots of different labels for doing research inclusively, they all share the same big questions. So one of the big questions is, who owns the research? Okay, and that's something that researchers often have to think about if they're going in and finding out the views and experiences of people. Surely those people have a say about where that research ends up, or how that the research could make the biggest impact. In whose interests is the research? Okay, so the researcher often has to have conversations with people with learning disabilities to try and find out, whose interests is the research for. Okay. And one of the difficult issues is around control. Who has the power over deciding where the research ends up, how it'll be published? Who makes those decisions? And finally, who owns or who produces the knowledge? So we'll be hearing lots of examples throughout today about projects that have been done inclusively. Melanie is much more eminently capable of, more experienced with doing research inclusively. But we'll be hearing later today from Val Williams, doing work from Bristol. She's waving there. We also have presentations by Steve Strong and Tammy. Thank you very much. And a Norway group of researchers and co-researchers will be presenting as well this morning. So this is the final slide. This is making the point that when we can do research and inclusively, and we do it well, what are the benefits of this? One of the benefits is that we answer questions we could not otherwise answer. Okay, so you'll be hearing examples of questions that researchers have grappled with that they wouldn't have been able to answer if they didn't work inclusively with people with learning disabilities. It's also about getting access in ways that you normally wouldn't. Okay, so by involving people from the very start, by using disabled people as trying to include them as co-researchers in the study, you get access in ways that you wouldn't. So you get that insider knowledge. And it's important that the research is also authentic. Okay, so you try and really show what the people have said themselves. And one of the main reasons for why we're here today is the last point about we can make an impact by doing research inclusively.